Hello, dear listener. I hope you are well. You must understand this very well. You no longer need understanding, you need peace. If someone hurt you and left without empathy, you are not obligated to show kindness when you distance yourself from that person. Kindness is a gift given to those who deserve it. It is not charity to be distributed to everyone. You all know that invisible rule we've been taught since childhood. Don't offend anyone. Don't spoil the mood. Manage, be accommodating, be compliant. But no one told us the price of offending ourselves so as not to offend others. No one told us how we slowly kill the person in the mirror while trying to please everyone. Today, I want to tell you to stop giving up on yourself just to beg for love. This video will offer you perhaps the most dangerous, most forbidden, but most liberating perspective you've ever heard to take control of your life. Offend if necessary. Be known as bad if necessary. Never, ever betray yourself. This video wasn't just made to teach you how to say no. This video was prepared to give you back the upright stance and boundaries you've lost. We're here to transform you from that compliant person everyone loves into that person of character everyone respects. If you're tired of being tossed around in other people's scenarios, write this sentence in the comments to make a deal with your mind and seal the change. Saying no means saying yes to myself. By writing this sentence, you are declaring to your subconscious that you no longer want to carry those unnecessary burdens. As Marcus Aurelius said, how much time a person saves when they don't care what others say, do, or think, and only focus on their own actions. If you're ready, let's begin. Don't confuse being harmless with being good. In nature, when a weak animal encounters a much stronger predator, it lies on its back and exposes its most vulnerable spot, its belly. This is exactly the attitude most of us display in life. It's a primitive defense mechanism you develop to escape danger and protect yourself from rejection. Your subconscious constantly tells you that if you are compliant, you won't be harmed. If you bow your head, the sword won't cut, it will whisper lies. However, there's no tiger in this world that will eat you. There are only poisonous people who are waiting for an opportunity to violate your boundaries, exploit your labor, and use your good intentions. Every time you give in, every unnecessary smile, you send these people the signal, I am harmless. You can crush me. I am not a threat to you. Remember that excessive humility is not advice to a mediocre person. It only emboldens them. Your gentlemanly or ladylike demeanor is the strongest fertilizer that feeds the arrogance of the other side. A tiger with its teeth removed and claws fallen off. Not attacking doesn't make him peaceful, does it? It only makes him inadequate. If you lack the capacity to bite, the strength to overturn the table, or the courage to start a fight when necessary, being peaceful isn't a moral choice. It's a necessity. Goodness only gains value when you choose to hold on to the power within yourself when you have the potential to do evil. When you remain silent simply to avoid hurting anyone, you are not actually exhibiting moral behavior. You are merely admitting that you lack the inner fire to defend yourself in a moment of conflict, that you are afraid. The obedience of someone who has no choice is not loyalty, it is outright slavery. And according to Seneca, the worst kind of slavery is the slavery of those who think they are free. People love this harmless, submissive state of yours because it is extremely easy to control, direct, and use you. However, they will never have deep respect for you unless they see a defiant stance. A potential danger in your eyes. Remember Jordan Peterson's famous warning, be dangerous, but keep it under control. True respect comes from having the power to harm, the intelligence to put someone in their place, and yet choosing politeness. Those around you don't approach your boundaries not because they believe you are polite, but because they know what might happen to them if they violate those boundaries, that is, because they know you might offend them. Politeness without deterrent effect is no different than a doormat that everyone steps on. Therefore, take off that docile child mask that stuck to your face. Stop deceiving yourself. You are not polite. You are simply afraid of conflict right now. True kindness is born from a sharpened will that knows how to keep the sword in its sheath. Aim for people to respect you because of your boundaries, not to love you. Remember, that angelic person loved by everyone is actually an ineffective element that nobody takes seriously. Now look in the mirror and honestly ask yourself, does your silence stem from virtue or from a lack of teeth? If the answer is the latter, first sharpen your teeth, draw your boundaries with thick lines, and don't be afraid to make those who violate those boundaries pay the price when necessary. Only then will your politeness be a gift, not a compulsion, born of fear. Erase the obligation to explain. Remember your elementary school years. Even to go to the toilet or get a drink of water, you had to raise your hand and ask the teacher for permission. Why? Because you weren't the authority in that class. Years have passed. Now you earn your own money. You live in your own home. But today, instead of simply saying no to someone, when you list excuses like, I can't come because I'm sick, or I'm too busy, it means you still haven't lowered that finger in your mind. The more you explain, the more you put the other person in the place of the teacher and yourself in the place of that helpless student still waiting for permission. Yet, at that moment, there is only one truth. You didn't feel like it, but you act as if saying this truth is a crime in your vocabulary. People who dare to question you expect a detailed account of every decision they make, every step they take. The more you explain, the more you descend in the hierarchy in the other person's mind. Because one of the most fundamental laws of power in the world is this: equals converse, subordinates report. In every sentence that begins with the word because, you are sending the message to the other person, please approve me, please don't be angry with me. You claim to be the master of your own life, yet you wait for someone else's approval for your decisions. This contradiction erodes your character. An emperor doesn't offer justifications for his orders to his subjects. A commander doesn't waste time explaining the reasons when giving an attack order to his soldiers. Power thrives on ambiguity. You, however, simplify yourself by making everything transparent, explaining every detail. When the person opposite you fully understands why you said no, they begin to produce arguments to refute that no. If your excuse is, I don't have time, they come up with suggestions to create time for you and corner you. But a clear, unjustified no like that is a wall that cannot be debated. They hit that wall and stop. The moment you stop explaining, you take away the control mechanism the other person has over you. People fear ambiguity, and this fear inspires respect in them. When they don't know why you didn't come, they construct much more important, much more mysterious scenarios about you in their minds. Because they can't figure you out, They have to approach you more cautiously. When you end the need to explain, that heavy burden is lifted from your shoulders. Stop wasting your words. If you've made a decision, that decision is within your domain and doesn't need the approval of an outside observer. As Marcus Aurelius said, we all love ourselves more than anyone else. But strangely, we value their opinions more than our own. Stop doing that. From now on, when someone tries to question you, use the power of that deep silence. Look them in the eyes and just state your decision. No excuses, no lies, no attempts at softening the blow. Let that silence be the loudest thing in the room. Let them wonder what you think, what you feel. Be prepared for ridiculousness and shame from the start. If you imagine a world where everyone admires you, no one criticizes you, and you are the absolute master of your own life, wake up immediately. Such a world does not exist. Freedom is not free. The price of it is exclusion and being ostracized. You want both to be safe within the flock of sheep and to hunt alone like a wolf. But these two cannot coexist. If you want to have character to exhibit a principled stance, you will have to be prepared for people to point fingers at you and say, "Look at that. What have you become? Does this suit you at all?" In fact, being prepared isn't enough. You must set this as a goal. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus warns, he does not mince words when showing this path to his students. If you want to develop, you must be willing to appear like a fool. This sentence is a sledgehammer to the face of your ego. Most people sell their souls to appear intelligent, cool, or of high status. You, on the other hand, should do the exact opposite. When you set your boundaries, when you say no, when you reject those absurd things imposed on you, people will look at you with bewildered eyes. They will find you rude, strange. They might even call you crazy. Let them say it. Their finding you intelligent or compliant shows how well you obey their rules. Not having a problem with anyone shows that there is a problem with you. A slave receives praise the better he serves his master. You should push that praise away with the back of your hand. When you enter a room, leave your desire to be loved at the door. People's whispers, accusations, or condemnations about you should bounce off your skin and fall to the ground. If someone says you have acted shamefully, it means you are on the right path. Because in their dictionary, acting shamefully means you have stopped serving our interests. When you hear this statement, instead of blushing with shame, let out a cry of triumph from within. It means the chains are broken. It means you are no longer their puppet. Being condemned is the tax paid by a free person. Those who avoid paying this tax are condemned to live their whole lives trembling in the shadow of others. One of those who understood this best was Cato, a Stoic young man, one of Rome's most powerful and noble figures. Cato deliberately walked the streets of Rome in clothes of completely incongruous colors, completely contrary to the fashion of the time, and sometimes even barefoot. This magnificent senator did this specifically so that people would look at him, laugh behind his back, whisper, and condemn him. When his friends asked him why he humiliated himself like this, his answer was a life lesson. I am learning not to be ashamed of these simple things, so that tomorrow, when they condemn me for defending the truth, that feeling of shame won't hurt me. Cato was hardening his sense of shame to kill the sensitivity of "what will people say" in his soul. He knew that someone who hasn't become immune to the ridicule and condemnation of people can never sign off on great decisions. Your reputation is just an illusion in your mind. Don't sacrifice your own reality to protect that illusion. Let them think you're cold. Let them say you've changed. You have no reputation to lose. You have a life to gain. If no one stops you on the path you're walking, if no one says they don't like you, you're probably on the wrong path. Because that path belongs to others, not you. Everyone who forges their own path is bound to leave behind a bewildered and angry crowd. Now make your choice. You will either be a prisoner who is applauded or a ruler who is condemned. Treat those who get upset with you like a grown-up child. Treat those who get upset with you like a grown-up child. What do you feel when you see a 3-year-old child in the middle of a supermarket throwing a tantrum, screaming at the top of their lungs, and banging their fists because they didn't get the candy they wanted? Probably not anger, but a slight pity and a disgust at that spoiled behavior. Now, grow that child's body. Add wrinkles to their face. Dress them in adult clothes. That's exactly the grown-up who sulks, turns up, or throws a tantrum when you set boundaries. That sullen attitude they display when you say no or fail to meet one of their expectations is a mental regression. The person in front of you may be biologically 30, 40, or 50 years old, but their emotional intelligence is at the same level as a kindergarten student whose desired toy has been taken away. You have to read this situation correctly. Many of you feel deep guilt when the person in front of you sulks or stops talking to you. Did I go too far? Did I hurt their feelings? You torment yourselves. You even try to make amends to fix the situation. What you're doing is no different than giving a crying child candy to make them stop. At that moment, you are rewarding their unhealthy behavior. Sulking or sulking is not a reaction that belongs to the adult world. An adult, if they have a problem, comes and talks. They express their discomfort in words. Instead of using words, the person who tries to punish you by withdrawing their love and attention like a weapon, saying, "If you don't do what I say, I'll hurt you," is a blackmailer. The moment you succumb to this silent blackmail, you hand the reins over to that spoiled child. Once that person learns that they can get what they want by sulking, they will use it against you for the rest of their life. Marcus Aurelius says, "Maturity is accepting reality as it is." The person opposite you, however, cannot accept your no and tries to twist reality with emotional manipulation. They play the victim to break your will. Don't buy a ticket to this theater. Don't see this behavior as sensitivity or sentimentality. It's pure weakness, manipulation. What you need to do is give them the treatment they deserve. Complete indifference. Refuse to take them seriously as an adult unless they act like one. Is she upset with you? Let her be upset. Is she not answering your calls? Stop calling immediately. Is she frowning when she gets home? Don't ask what's wrong. Enjoy yourself. Watch your TV. Eat your meal. Your cheerful and carefree attitude will drive her crazy, because she's waiting for that dark cloud she created to rain down on you. When you open your umbrella and continue on your way, all her weapons will backfire. If someone gets upset with you because of your boundaries, it's not your fault. It's a problem of her underdeveloped ego. Trying to console her is feeding a manipulator. Let her stew in her own juices. Your job isn't to coddle people's whims or repair their fragile egos. If someone can't speak to you politely And if the solution lies in sulking, the distance you put between yourself and that person is not a punishment, but a hygiene rule. Look at them and say to yourself, grow up and come back. And until they grow up, which they probably never will, continue on your own path without even looking back. Being able to stand alone where you are. Think of that first second you find yourself alone in a cafe, a waiting room, or at home. Your hand reflexively reaches for your phone. Your fingers yearn to touch a screen, find some noise, establish a connection. Why? Because you are fleeing from that deep silence that forms in your mind at that moment, like escaping from a dark alley. Those crowded places that many of you call socializing, that you went to so as not to be rude, are actually sanctuaries. You are among them not because you love people, but because you cannot tolerate yourself. Being alone with your own mind feels so frightening, so empty, that you take refuge in the noise of the shallowest conversations, the most fake laughter, and try to suppress your inner voice. The Stoic philosopher Seneca explains this situation in his letters to Lucilius as follows. The greatest proof of an organized mind is the ability to stop, wait, and spend time with oneself. If a person cannot sit peacefully in a room without any external distractions, without a phone, music, or people, then that person is not free. They are dependent on the outside world. If you feel worthless or inferior when you don't have plans on Friday night, it means you have mortgaged the validation of your existence to the existence of others. Mixing with crowds, rushing to those endless events, is actually a declaration of inner bankruptcy. Because there is no one inside, you try to fill that void with the crowd outside. But true strength is the art of standing alone in that void. Every environment you join just because you don't want to be rude and you were invited is a piece stolen from your soul. When you refuse an invitation, you shouldn't care if people call you wild or cold. They constantly roam in herds because they cannot be alone. A flock of sheep becomes uneasy when it sees a wolf standing alone, because that wolf does not need the herd. Your solitude should not be a feeling of abandonment, but a conscious choice, a noble state of self-sufficiency. You must realize that you are not a battery charged by the energy of others, but a generator that produces its own energy. Ask yourself this cruel question: who am I when there is no one to keep me occupied? If the answer to this question is a great nothingness, then you will run like a slave to every invitation, every phone call, every call to come over. But if you have built your own mind, if you are friends with your own thoughts, then solitude is not a punishment for you, but a reward. People will not understand this. They will mistake your solitude for arrogance, for depression, because they know they will go mad in the silence, and they envy how peacefully and uprightly you stand in that silence. From now on, see those places and people you go to, even though you don't want to, just so it doesn't seem rude, as a burden. Get up from the table, leave the crowd, go home and stand alone in that room doing nothing. At first, your mind will scream, feel constricted, and want to escape. Resist. Beyond that distress lies an unwavering will that needs no one, that finds its affirmation within itself. In defiance of those who say, "You did wrong," the moment you can say to yourself, "I'm glad I did it," is the moment your chains are broken. One who can stand alone owes nothing to anyone, and the only person who has no debt is the true master. Before closing the video, I want to hammer one last nail into your mind. Up until today, You may have lived your life like a public inn with no door, where anyone could come and go as they pleased, dirty and plunder. People entered through that door, waving their arms and legs. They drained your energy. They ate the food on your table and left without even saying thank you. And you always thought it was rude to tell them you can't come in. You thought that if you locked the door, they would kick you out. But the ultimate truth the Stoics taught us is this: your mind and soul are not an inn, but a sacred temple, and the doors of temples are not open to everyone. To stand guard at that door, to question those who try to enter, and to prevent the unworthy from crossing that threshold is the most sacred duty of the temple guardian. From today, put that lock on that door. People will try to force the door. They will bang on the windows. They will shout from outside, "Let us in. How much you have changed. How rude you are." Let them shout. Let them say that you have wronged them by staying behind closed doors. While they make noise outside, you enjoy the deep silence and peace inside. Remember, setting boundaries is the architecture of your self-respect. And one who cannot protect their own temple can never welcome a divine guest within it. The key to your temple is now only it's in your pocket. Who you give it to is now up to you. Until we meet again in the next video, stay stoic and stay strong.